Welcome to Awakening Streams, the podcast of One River Zen Meditation Center in Ottawa, Illinois. Hosted by Sensei Michael Brunner. Learn more, donate, and practice with us at oneriverzen.org.
You can feel free to shift yourself on your cushion to make yourself comfortable. Coming together in sesshin is such a powerful way of being in community, of being present, that restores us to a vantage point where we can see our true nature clearly, because it's just echoed everywhere we look. All the wonder, all the joy. Many of you are old friends, some are new friends, but when we come together in this way, we meet ourselves. Yeah. We think we're looking at a lot of different people, but we're actually looking at the essence of awakening, through the activity of just coming and seeking the way. So again, always equated the way-seeking mind with enlightenment. That curiosity, that boundless presence, that playfulness that happens when we all come together in this way. Kind of poke fun a little bit about the karmic self that we've created. Yeah. So it's already been a powerful session. We started a few days early. Peter and Chris came in and spent many, many hours, and Genpo actually, repointing. I say repointing, but they actually really just applied mortar all over that brick wall. Moved about 1,300 or 1,400 pounds of product, cement, and just made the temple look a lot more beautiful. But also made it a place for practice for all of you. So it's greatly appreciated. But even though it's labor, it's a different kind of labor, I guess. When we come together in the service of something much larger than ourselves. And we can even be playful when we're moving cement. Yeah. But I greatly appreciate that. So there's a case in the Hekiganroku. It's the 36th case. It's called Chōsha Wandering in the Mountains. Wandering in the Mountains. So all of you know, you've been doing koan study, the koans are a wonderful way of using our intellect, using our conceptual ideation to point to a place that's far beyond our words and concepts, our conceptual understanding. If you try approaching these from the vantage of reason, they're going to put you in a loop, right? It's going to be difficult for you to resolve them, because they're going to intentionally resist penetration through reason. But if you just put down your need to know, if you just put down for a moment your intellect, then wisdom opens up easily. It just blooms. And the answer is always present right in front of you. The word in Sanskrit for wisdom is prajna. And prajna is a compound word. It just means before knowing. So if you can retain that, many masters have called it different things. Shunryu Suzuki would call it beginner's mind. Some modern masters, Bernie Glassman, called it not knowing. Dogen called it fu'e, or not understanding. And here we talk a lot about it, of abiding in a state of wonder. It's all pointing to the same place, right? Get out of your heads for a minute and join the dance. So the case is, one day Chōsha wandering in the mountains. Upon returning, when he got to the gate, the head monk was there. And he asked him, "Where are you coming from, master?" Chōsha says, "From wandering in the mountains." The head monk said, "Well, where did you go?" Chōsha said, "First, I went pursuing the fragrant grasses, and then I returned following the falling flowers. The head monk said, I'm very much like the sense of springtime. And Chōsha said, it even surpasses the autumn dew dripping on the lotuses. Secho, the compiler of these texts, added the comment, thank you for your reply. So, sometimes it's hard to see the gate of entry on these cases, because our intellect wants to immediately know, well, how do I unlock this? How do I get the conceptual knowledge that's trapped in this case? But this one's not going to yield very easily to that form of inquiry. So Chōsha was a disciple of Nansen. So a lot of you, if you've studied the Mumonkan, you know Nansen as the one who famously holds up the cat, and says, I want you monks to say something, and if you don't, I'm going to cut this cat in half. So he's the same, that's the same master here who's Chōsha's teacher. And this is the time, this is the time of the golden age of Zen. So other characters like Tokyo-san and Isan and Rinzai, the other Zen school, other than the Soto school that we're a part of, were all contemporaries of Chōsha. You also know Chōsha because he was a wonderful poet. So in the Mumonkan, which is the first collection of koans that we use in practice and training, several of the verses that come after the case were actually written by Chōsha. So the case about the stepping off, though you've attained some form of realization, still it's not real. First, you have to step off the top of a 100-foot pole. The poem for that case was written by Chōsha, and it says, making the eye on the forehead blind, one clings to the mark on the scale. Throwing away body and life, one blind person leads all. It evades speaking of this interconnectedness. Is so difficult and so subtle sometimes that it only is reachable through poetry. But even then, right, you still have to look or sight over the conceptual ideas to see where it's pointing. So Chōsha was very good at this, and you can tell from the spirit or the sound of the case. So Chōsha followed the grasses. He was out wandering in the mountains, following the grasses, almost like a child, out chasing a ball. You can see the playful exuberance here. And you might even imply that the notion of, chasing or following implies some form of pursuit or some goal. That's not it really at all. Chōsha's, he doesn't have a calculated, agenda in doing this, or some utilitarian mode of kind of attaching meaning to life. He's saying, I'm appreciating things precisely as they are. I'm seeing the full dimensions of my life without being attached to some idea of how I think they should be. And I'm truly able to appreciate my life that way. I talked to Peter the other morning. Peter and I are both in our early 50s, so I occasionally try to commiserate with Peter, but he is evading the old better than I am. Yeah. So the morning after, I went out and I helped mix some of the mortar and haul some of it. The morning after, I was aware that I had been mixing mortar the day before, so I went to Peter and I said, Peter, you feeling sore today? And he said, well, I feel exhausted and my muscles ache a little bit, but in a very good way, in a very satisfying way. And that's a good way of being present with our lived experience, right? When you approach the sensation that we call pain, if we have an aversion to it, then we color it as something bad and something we want to avoid. So we start popping copious quantities of pills to avoid it. But if we're able to embrace it and to see what it represents, then it unfolds in a whole new way right before us. It's a brilliant way, yeah, of just being present with our life as it presents itself. When we follow the fragrant grasses, we're truly present with everything. We're completely moved by things as they show themselves. When we live in the discursive mind, yeah, that place where judgments are all formed and we label everything, the most scenic vista of our lived experience, yeah, is flattened into a two-dimensional snapshot. Yeah. I see people taking pictures of their food at restaurants when it's served. This phenomena is very baffling. It's so beautiful, they think. I want it to last forever. Yeah, I want it to last forever. But you can't eat the photograph. And the photograph, as much as you want it to, won't bring you back to the sensory experience or the full beauty of that moment. Yeah. But you also, it's the same thing when you try to appreciate your life through your labels and judgments and constructs. Yeah. We can't cling to it. We just need to eat it. You're not going to be actualized and appreciated by memorializing it or trying to create some poem about the beauty of it. You have to go and walk directly into it. Yeah. Think about how sad it is when we're caught in that judging mind to not be able to experience the warmth of an embrace or the feeling of the cool wind on our face, yeah, as these October days begin to bite. Yeah. Or even the loss of a loved one that we can't experience directly because we're so caught up in the judgments about the experience that we never are able to actually feel the pain and longing associated with it. Yeah. Dwelling in our snapshots rather than being moved by the circumstances as they present themselves is a hollow way of being, but it's also a surefire way, right, to not actually be able to manifest as the medicine required to heal the rift in the situation that's caused by our discursive cleaving, by our intellect constantly wanting to break things up and apprehend them. There's a legendary story about Chōsha. It says one day he was enjoying the moonlight with Kyo-san. And he said, everyone has this one thing, but doesn't know how to use it. The one thing he's referring to is this innate Buddha nature that's present not just in us, but everywhere. So it's a way of interconnectedness. I like to call it hopeless interconnectedness. There's no matter how hard you try to extricate yourself or objects, they won't yield to the intellectual persuasion. Yeah. And so because they won't, we suffer. And so Chōsha said, perhaps I should try to employ you and use it. Right? And Kyo-san said, go ahead and try it. So instantly, without a thought, Chōsha trampled all over Kyo-san. And Kyo-san said, Uncle, you're like a fierce tiger. Kyo-san was trying to pick an argument in his head, and Chōsha brought him right back to the truth of your original nature. Yeah? Our actions are our continuance. If you want to really see it, be moved by it. Yeah. It doesn't work if you hold it in an intellectual capacity. You actually have to be moved by the situation. Of course, this is a grandiose example from the spirit of Zen's past, right? But where is it right now? Where is it right now? Can you stay with your lived experience? Can you recognize all the joy, but all the pain? Yeah, because there's going to be falling flowers too, just like the story suggests. Yeah. Just as they are. We need to get out there and live. We don't come here to run away from our lives. We come here to get into or be actualized by our lived experience, by the imperatives of suffering that present themselves to us at every turn. And you're not going to get some new political idealism that's going to magically weave a story that's going to make everybody happy and whole. Yeah? It's not going to work. you're going to have to actually do something. Roll up your sleeves, and you're going to have to do something about it. When you see suffering, walk into it. If it's hungry, feed it. If it's crying, hold it. Yeah. This isn't a dress rehearsal. And the dancing in your head really isn't satisfying compared to the embrace of a partner. We got to drop the story and live. So here is all of this awesome truth, right, encapsulated in just a couple of short sentiments expressed by Chōsan. And the head monk looks at him and says, how very much like the sense of springtime. Yes? Isn't that amazing? Tries to immediately draw a box around it and say, that's just this, what you're expressing, is just like my understanding, my knowledge surrounding spring. Yeah. Is it? Can it be said or encapsulated in any way? Is eating a picture of a piece of cake as satisfying as eating the cake? Yeah. The head monk's trying to cut off his exuberance, right? We call it, hey, come back to your senses. But is that really what people mean when they talk about come back to your senses? They mean come back to reason. Come back to my opinion of how things should be and espouse those same views. Bah. Bah. So Chōsan now pivots, right? And he says, better than autumn dews falling on the lotus leaves. This is Chōsan trying to paint a picture of what we would call absolute samadhi. You guys know what absolute samadhi is, right? Yeah. There's no more questions in that place. All the ancestors who are bearing witness to our practice, when you pass by the ancestors' altar in the hallway, are in absolute samadhi. Yeah? Today, when we do a jukai ceremony, we'll take the recipients to that altar and have them stand and bear witness to all the unbroken chain of ancestry of people whose ardor made it possible for us to practice in this way today. And they'll bear witness from absolute samadhi. Yeah. There's a scroll here on the wall. We all walk by it. You say, well, it looks very pretty. Yeah. But it says, in Chinese script, painted very artistically, the autumn leaves dance on the wind, the gently blowing wind, which is a reminder. Yeah. It's a reminder. Hey, stay here with this moment. Yeah. Stay here, because you only get a certain number of these moments before you pass on to absolute samadhi. You walk by somebody who's suffering on the street and you think, I ought to do something about that tomorrow. Yeah. And it's amazing how that tomorrow never seems to come. Or you have an argument with your wife and you say, I'll get over this in a day or two, and then I'll go to her and tell her I'm sorry and I love her. We're not guaranteed that they're going to come back. You're going to live. If you're going to practice, you have to practice now. Yeah. The autumn wind is blowing, friends. Yeah. And although it's so beautiful and such a joyous time of life, you have to show up for it. But it's also a reminder. Take heed. Do not squander your life. Yeah? That positive samadhi that we can practice today with every breath we take. Yeah? We need to ensure that we're using and appreciating to its fullest. Hakuin, Zen Master Hakuin said, Samadhi in actual life is 100,000 times better than samadhi in quietude. Very practical wisdom from a very esteemed master. Yeah? Yeah. Use it while you have it. Yeah? Use it while you have it. I'm not saying we avoid death. There's some idea of death that we're all afraid of. Yeah? And that death is just an idea. Yeah? Seasons will pass. Yeah? And you'll never float away completely. You'll just transform and change. When it's our time to die, we'll die. But then let's really die. Yeah? But while we're alive, let's really live. And let our actions be our continuance. Now we live. Embrace and appreciate your life as it presents itself now.
Thank you for joining us. If this podcast was meaningful for you and supported your practice, please give us a hand by visiting us at oneriverzen.org today.